Welcome to Soul Steps with Dr. Ren. I'm your heart-to-heart walking companion. These short, soulful reflections come straight from my morning devotion walks. Think of it as a chat with your bestie that feeds your mind and spirit. Walk with me or just listen and get ready to feel uplifted, informed, and inspired. Good morning, friends. Welcome to Soul Steps with Dr. Ren. Today is Saturday. I'm going to have to look up which date it is because I most certainly do not know the date. But this is my first Soul Steps recorded after the transition of my mother from her earthly body to her eternal home in heaven. And I have assurances that she is there as she shared visions of her white robe folded on a bookcase prior to her passing, and of a presence comforting her, laying in the bed with her as she slept. And what I'd like to share most this morning is just some fresh thoughts about this part of the process. And, I cared for my mom on home hospice since February 21st, so a little over a month. And because I have had experience with providing hospice care to my sister, I already knew some things, but there was a lot that I also learned caring for my mother. We had caretakers 8 hours a day, Monday through Sunday, 7 days a week. And that allowed me to continue to work full-time, working from home, which allowed me the flexibility to still come down and interact with my mom and really spend a lot of time with her. The evenings were challenging as I became the primary caretaker for the evening and the overnight, where she required quite a bit of care. But it also afforded me an opportunity to sit with her in the quiet when everyone had gone to sleep, and she found a little burst of energy to order me around, to give me advice or instructions, or just tell me what was on her mind. So I had a lot of really precious times with her, even as she got tired and weak and it was hard for her to speak. I still felt her presence strong and her spirit very strong. And what I'm most grateful for is that I was able to be fully present with her the entire time, that I never grew weary in caring for her. It never felt like a burden or too much. And that I was able to keep her comfortable, that she felt loved and cared for, that she never felt that she was a bother or a burden. Anytime she asked for a tissue, a sip of iced Coke, some chapstick for her lips, anytime she asked for any of those things, I was able to attend to her needs. And she had loving caregivers, and she had her grandchildren who would greet her and hug her, and my husband who would always come and greet her whenever he came or left the home. She was in our home in our front room, so not off in a side room. She was part of the family. She was the first presence that would greet you when you came to our front door and looked to the right. There she was. And all of this was intentional. We did receive visitors while she was home, and that was wonderful to have the ability to receive visitors like that. Sometimes it was hard to have a lot of visitors at one time, or having a lot in one day became a bit stressful. And for us and for her, I think, was a bit much especially because people tend to think they're not a bother, but they're having kind of conversation. And conversation can be energy requiring. Towards the end, I started to realize that I too was growing weary of conversation. And the only person I wanted to have a conversation with was my mother. So, we started to energetically focus ourselves inward and started to decrease visitation to just immediate family. And in those final days, so many graces. I was able to make a mold of me holding my mother's hand, and it turned out beautifully. I was able to get her all dressed up in her Spelman alumni gear, and my cousin, her cousin as well, came and brought a personalized blanket and sang the Spelman hymn. I feel like these are all these beautiful recollections of her life, even as she's in the most frail portion of her life. I never saw her physical body as an indication of her being. Maybe this is why I never struggled to see her as beautiful, ever. Even she took her last breath, and, her eyes kind of with the partial open, partial close, but not really seeing. Eyes open, but not seeing, mouth open, as the muscles that close your jaw became fatigued, her fingers turning blue as the heart struggled to pump blood that was oxygenated, as her lungs struggled to pull oxygen into the oxygen cells. This process, as her skin tried to regulate its temperature and would, speeds of sweat forming, this was all beautiful to me. I never saw that and thought, oh God, what's wrong? Let me fix this. Let me change this. I mean, this is all part of the process of the body slowly shutting itself down and coming to a close. Everything ends. The day ends every single day. The sun sets. And I mean, how many sonnets and songs have been written about a sunset? The sunset is beautiful. It is the death of a day. And this is how I saw my mother, her final day. Remember well, you may not remember because you may not be on my private Facebook page, but sometime back, I made a post that said something along the lines of, one day I'm going to wake up and it's going to be the last day that I have with my mom. And I'm probably not going to know that it's the last day. And I said some more things along the post, but the main point was that because of that truth, I was going to treat every single day as if it was that last day, because one day it will be. So if I think about that last day, even though she passed around 1 a.m. on Thursday, I consider Wednesday was my last day with my mom. Today's Saturday. So what happened on Wednesday? Wednesday was kind of a weird day that sort of continued from Tuesday, because I was sleeping downstairs and I was up like maybe 3 a.m. caring for her and dozed off to sleep. This is sort of my overnight routine, was kind of waking and dozing in this twilight state. So in this twilight state, for some reason, I don't know, maybe I was tired, because normally Wednesday I would get up 4:30, I would do my Wednesday circuit, 6 o'clock, and so on and so forth. I had a caregiver scheduled for 9 a.m., but for some reason I kind of dilly-dallied in the morning caring for my mom Wednesday. Maybe I slept in a bit. All I know was by the time it was 9 o'clock, I was still in my pajamas, and I had prepared wound healing drink for my mom that was orange flavored, and I was feeding that to her, because at this point she had trouble to hold the bottle, but she could open her mouth and take small sips. So I was, the kids all came and went to school or whatever, and she was taking her drink. The aide came and she wanted to take over, and I said, no, I'm here. and I just sat by my mom, and she actually did good. She drank about half of that drink, which was unusual. Tried to get a little bit of the calorie drink in her. She didn't like that as much. She wanted some cold carbonated Diet Coke. So I said to the caregiver, oh, well, she hasn't taken her morning meds, which I normally do at 6 in the morning. So the caregiver brings the box to me. I realize, oh, it's empty because I actually need to refill her meds. So she says, why don't you refill the meds and I'll feed her her drink? I said, no, I'm going to keep doing this. I'll do the meds later. So already I feel like a blessing that I tarried with my mom in that moment of feeding her like a little baby bird and resting with her. And then eventually I kind of, handed off to the caregiver and filled up the meds and prepared the meds. We gave her her morning meds. But it was a nice, slow morning in that regard. Not rushed and, but off timing in a sense, off routine. So my aunt and uncle were driving up from Tallahassee. We were waiting to receive them, and my uncle was staying with us. He actually stayed an extra day, which is also a blessing. He was supposed to leave on Tuesday, but he stayed till Wednesday. He was waiting for my aunt and uncle to arrive, and as the morning went, I said, I haven't gotten my walk in, and I need my walk. So I put on my 12-pound walking vest, and as soon as I went out to leave the first time, I got a phone call, which was, it was something like medical related to my mom. So I was like, oh, okay, I had to go back inside to take that call, do that thing. And I was like so annoyed, but I went ahead and did that. Then I got out to walk again, and then I see my aunt and uncle driving in. I said, I'm not skipping my walk. Just waved to them and said, hey, I'll be back. So I went and took my walk on Wednesday. Probably a nice long, hour-long walk or so. And I can't remember if that's when I went in. I may have wandered into my neighbor's house to say hi to her. I think that's what I did. And she wasn't there inside. And then I came out. She came to the door. She says, oh, I thought that might have been you. I said, yeah. So we talked a bit. And eventually I came home. I would normally come home and take a shower, but I didn't do that. Just took off the vest and started visiting with my aunt and uncle and talking about the day. So we're pretty much starting to get into the afternoon at this point. And I realized I have some afternoon meetings. So I said, okay, I'm going to get ready for those meetings. So I sort of lingered on in fellowship with family, and then I started taking my meetings. And I came down probably around 5 o'clock when it was about time for me to go pick up my daughter. And my other aunt had came. I don't really know which day. Some of the days this week get mixed up. All I know, it was time for me to, no, this time I said, oh, I'm going to go pick up Josiah and Ellie because they were going to leave then. It was around 5. Caregiver left at 4. So I came down at 5. And I said, well, Auntie, do you want to come with me to pick up Josiah? She said, okay. So I went to pick up Ellie from track, picked up Josiah from school, and then we came back home. And then I said, oh, well, I think Isaiah's still up there. Maybe we can come down and get a picture with him. So now we're getting into 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, I said, oh, I promised to do phone banking for Sean Harris, who's running for Congress, and Marjorie Taylor Greene's old spot. So I got to actually... I'm doing that at 6:30, so I got to go up there and get prepared. And also I'm running this meeting for my AAU team, my son's AAU team, tonight at 7:30. So I said, I'm going to pop up there. I'll come back before you guys go. I truly hate when this automatic alarm, this means I got to make 2 posts. I'm so annoying. So annoyed. This is part 2 because I haven't figured out how to splice in iMovie. So maybe I'll figure out how to splice in iMovie again, which means this is going to take me forever to post. All because of my prayer alarms. You can blame my prayer alarm. Cuts off video. So I went up, I took the first call, so this is 6:30 of phone banking. And I said, oh, I better get down there and see them before this meeting. So I went downstairs, and at that point around 6:30, and just visiting then they kind of said, oh, we need to hit the road. Now it's close to 7. I said, we're going to take a picture with mom, say goodbye. So we took a picture with mom, and she's still talking. And then as I get ready to go, my aunt notices that mom is kind of sweating. And I said, oh, she's very concerned. I said, oh, it's okay. I'll take care of it. And I could tell that mom wasn't like really responding great. So the nurse had come earlier, but I didn't get a chance to talk to the nurse. But I noticed that the head of the bed was kind of elevated. So I kind of needed to shoo my auntie away, because I knew it wasn't going to be good for them to stay throughout this, since they had to drive home. So I kind of shooed them off, and I know it was hard to leave someone that you love when you know they're in distress. But I got them out the door, and then started to tend to my mom. I realized her oxygen was low, and that's when I had my son Isaiah. It was getting close to the time of my meeting start. Honestly, I wasn't sure how many minutes my mom had left, but her oxygen was low. It was kind of all over the place. So I said, Isaiah, just sit with Nana, text me the numbers, and just read her the Psalms over and over again. Because I figured whether she passed with me or with her grandson would be fine by her either way. And I just didn't want her to be alone. So we tried to figure out how to get my husband back, because he was at a small group and he turns his ringer off. So we're doing all this. I text Avi, ask him to come on down. I run my meeting. The meeting goes well. I get off there immediately, come back downstairs. Mom's definitely struggling. So I start rallying everybody to come, try to get the hospice nurse to come back to assess her, get my daughter back from tutoring early, opened up a Zoom line for family to join, and to read her scriptures. That's all she said she wanted. I had asked her previously what she would want for comfort at this time. So that's what we did. We read scriptures, we sang some songs, and this went on from probably about 8, 9, 10. By about 11 o'clock, people started getting tired. My kids, said they'd want to go up to sleep. I said, fine, that's fine. Josiah was very kind of didn't want to go to sleep and wanted my attention, which I wasn't able to give him. And at one point, he was nagging me. I said, Josiah, look at Nana. Does she look okay to you? He said, no. I said, she's not okay. Her breathing is not okay. There's a really good chance she could stop breathing at any time. And then he says, well, if she stops breathing, then she'll die. I said, I know. So then he paused for a minute and said, I just want Mario Kart on my iPad. I said, well, son, I can't help you with that. You're going to have to get Daddy to help you. By that point, Akil had come home. So we were all together. We were all circled around her, just being present with her, reading her scriptures. And eventually, people popped off the Zoom. And at that point, everybody was asleep except my brother, Greg, and I. We talked for a little bit on the phone. This was probably about midnight. And then it was just me and my mom. So I kind of started getting things, made myself some tea earlier. So I was finishing up my tea and just noticing her breathing getting shallow. She started taking deep breaths that were very slow. And I thought about taking a shower and realized I didn't really have enough time to take a shower without feeling that she could pass while I was in the shower. So I went to the bathroom, came back out, and just laid down with her. And I had played piano hymns. So all kinds of beautiful hymns were being played. One point, the hymn, Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus, which reminds me of when I first gave my life to the Lord at Camp Dovewood in Florida. That was one of the songs that they would play. Turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full on his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace, something like that. So there were these beautiful hymns, how you doing, that were being played in the background. And I just, told my mom, I love you, Mom. I'm here with you. You're not alone. Everything is okay. And she was comfortable. She was just breathing in and out. At some point, she would take kind of a gasp of a breath and then let it out. And I just said, oh man, this is it. This is how it will be, like this. I kind of looked up at my clock. It was 12:58 a.m. And I just put the phone back down and laid with her and just kissed her and let her know how much I loved her. And then she took her last breath, and that was it. I sat down and laid with her for a bit and dried off the clammy skin. And after some time, I eventually called my husband down, called him and let him know that she was gone. And he sat down with me in the quiet, and we just reflected on our gratitude for the fact that we were able to be there for her in this time. And, I knew I had to go, call the hospice nurse, get the pronouncement, call the funeral home. All those things were in order. And, but we just tarried in that moment with her body. And, in that time, I think it was important for me to appreciate that she was no longer there. You think that just after somebody passes away that you can realize, like, they're not there. But my mother had been going back and forth between being here and not here for quite some time, and I kind of felt like I was constantly negotiating for her to come on back to this side, when she would go on over. And so it did take me a bit of time to realize that, yeah, she was no more in this body, and she wouldn't be coming back to this body. So that was it. We called the hospice nurse. It took them about 45 minutes to come. She did her evaluation and made the time of death pronouncement, I think officially 2:06 a.m. And then I had pre-called the funeral home, but they need to have the call from the nurse. So she called them, and they said it would be 1 to 1.5 hours until they came. And so I just decided now's a good time to take a shower. So I took my shower, which was a bit of a water, ritual, prayer, kind of cleansing off was what it really ended up being. And just prayerfully receiving God's grace in that moment. And then, my husband went back to bed, and I just, sat down with my mom. And I don't even remember what I did during that time. Maybe I just sat and listened to hymns and reflected until they came. They came and, wrapped her up and put her on the gurney, and that was very emotional. I remember as when they took my sister, it was quite emotional because I had sort of argued with her about, you can't keep going back and forth to the hospital if you stay with me. The only time when you pass the threshold of that door is because you've made a decision to leave, or Allah, your God, has taken you home, but you won't come back. This was my conversation with my sister, who had all kinds of plans. And so I decided that and she stayed with us, and the time that she passed through the threshold was her final time, and with my mother. So it was emotional to see my mother also passing through the threshold of the door for the final time. And I had a sign outside the door welcoming people to visit, and said the Queen Mother is in, enter prayerfully and peacefully. And so I brought the sign inside, changed it to say the Queen Mother is with God, and I just left it inside. And then I went to clean up her area, made her bed, got rid of all the extra stuff you have around to sustain the life of someone in that stage, and just prepared it to be peaceful, because I wanted my children to wake up in the morning the next day and to not see the remnants of some chaotic scenario, but for them to see the peaceful space that remained, that once held the life of my mother. And by this time it was probably 3:34 in the morning, and I sort of given up all hope of sleep, but thought I should try to get some kind of sleep. And I found it quite hard to sleep. I would sort of doze off and then kind of wake up to hearing the music, which I so associated with also hearing my mom breathe. That's how I would wake up for the past 20 days. I would wake up to a song, and then I would listen. I'd hear my mom breathing, and I'd be like, okay. And then if I didn't hear her breathing, then I'd get up and go check on her. And so that was sort of like awkward. That's how I got through that first night. So that was my last day with my mom. You know? And it was a good one. Maybe I wish I could have spent more time by her side, but I do say that I did the things that she would have wanted me to do, you know, to continue to do good work in the world with my work meetings, and to be there for my children, and also to be there with her and to allow her siblings to stand in the gap and love on her. So my message to you is really simple. The fact is that we don't know when our last day is. None of us knows. And honestly, it's not bad life advice to live every single day as if it was your last. Because today could be your last day. You really just don't know. And if you live every life with intention, loving people meaningfully, and just trying to do your best to live a good life, then I think you will end up leaving a good life behind you. My mother lived a great life. She loved deeply, vigorously, broadly, non-judgmentally, fully, consistent with her values. And she left us a great example of how to live. And I do grieve, I mourn, I miss her. And I am strengthened by her strength and strengthened by her example, and know that she is with me. All of the best parts of her she imbued in me long before she faced the end of her life. She made sure that I would know how to live and how to love. And so I carry her legacy with me, and I hope that sharing these very intimate details about our last day with her touches you in some way, that encourages you if you need encouragement, that it warms your heart if you've walked down this journey, that you may find some validation in the fact that you are not alone in your journey and your struggle. If you're mourning a mother, we're coming up on a Mother's Day, which is going to be my first Mother's Day and first Father's Day as an orphan child. And if you know any billionaires, I might put myself up for adoption. Just saying. It can't be like a bad one. It'd have to be like Warren Buffett, like somebody with good morals. So, just a thought. But seriously, guys, I'm going to wrap up and prayerfully figure out how to splice this video and do my old school Soul Steps upload, not my little quick and dirty one I've been doing lately, so you can see the full video. And if not, I'll just post it in 2 parts, part 1 and part 2. But hey, I got up after a 2-day hiatus of exercise, and I moved my body with love and intention after the hardest day of my life. So I know that you can move your body with love and intention today. But also remember that I love you. Bye.